One of the things that people assume about new ideas is that other people will recognize them. And this is not true. If you build something that's totally new, the chance of people noticing it are actually pretty slight, unless you create a moment of wow. And what I mean by this is most of the time, as we go through our daily lives, we're on autopilot. We don't notice things, even things that change in our environment that are radically different. Unless there's something that we're specifically paying attention to, we just overlook. So one of the problems that we had with Square was getting our product noticed. And you would think, well, a revolutionary credit card machine that just works in your iPhone, people will notice that. But no, they didn't. And I discovered this when I was building the hardware because I actually built a couple of different types of hardware. I started with a prototype that was really, really small. The problem with the small one was that it didn't work very well because the credit card would rock as it was going through. And because of that, I made a larger prototype. And the big prototype read perfectly. The small prototype didn't. But I would test both, and I would get very interesting reactions. If I tested both together, people always preferred the larger prototype. But if I tested them separately, I got wildly different reactions. If I tested the big one by itself, people would say, oh yeah, you just read a credit card, so what? If I tested the small one, which looked really, really impossibly small, people would say, what the hell was that? What did you do? Let me see that. They got interested. And so even though people preferred, statistically the bigger one, and even though the bigger one worked more reliably, we decided to release and only release this tiny version because it got people's attention. It created this moment of wow, a moment where you're sort of shaken out of your sort of zombie-like daily trance and you notice something new. And one of the most frustrating things about building a new product is that it's hard to get people to recognize that it's new. Now, it may be new because they may not recognize it because it's irrelevant. It doesn't do anything that they care about. But in our case, we had something that was new and relevant. It was still difficult to get people to notice. So look for moments when people wake up. Look for moments when there's shock or awe or some other moment of wow. So the focus of a company that has an innovation stack is totally different from the focus of a normal company. If you are a normal company, you have competitors, you have other companies that are doing similar things to you, and you better keep your eye on them. It would be stupid to ignore your competition because they may come up with some incremental improvement or change that you then need to respond to. It's good to copy your competitors if you are in a normal business environment. If you're an innovation stack company, the math sort of changes because you really don't have competitors if you have a unique innovation stack. What you have instead are customers. You have people who are using your product. Those people are probably themselves different than the folks who are using, sort of similar products in similar industries. And the only place you can have your focus when you're an innovative company is on your customers. So why is this important? Well, it's important because where you look influences what you think. So one of the things Square did when we started was we didn't hire anybody from the industry. We didn't hire any bankers. We didn't hire any credit card executives. Actually, we hired one guy from MasterCard for a couple of weeks, and we just did the opposite of everything that he said. And finally, we realized that even his negative advice was, sort of irrelevant, so we got rid of him. But after that, we waited years before we brought any of that DNA from the industry into our organization. We waited until our innovation stack was fully formed and we were serving our customers and focused on the customers. And then only did we integrate, some of this other thought. And I think that's an important thing because if you try to build something and spend too much time looking at your competitors, you will naturally want to copy what they're doing. You want to copy their pricing and their marketing and their products possibly. And that's just the wrong place to look. If you have the luxury of an innovation stack, you also have the luxury of kind of ignoring your competition because in theory, if you're doing things right, there won't be much competition to begin with.